Are you still spending hours managing your business finances, logging into your accounts, moving money manually, and stressed about cash flow? What if I told you that there was a way that you could automate your finances? You could free up your time and build wealth without the hassle. Well, my name's Nick Syler, and I'm a former financial advisor. I've started 3 of my own companies, and I've talked with and worked with hundreds of business owners about their finances. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to set up an automated financial system that runs your business like clockwork. So let's dive in. Step 1, it's about building your foundation. Think of your finances like a house. Without a strong foundation, everything's just going to fall apart. And here's the thing. A lot of business owners, unfortunately, they mix up their personal and business finances, which is an absolute nightmare when it comes to tax time. Plus, not only that, it gives you a lack of clarity when it comes to profit. But here's how we solve it. We need to start with having the right account structure. When it comes to your business finances, you're going to need a few different accounts. You need separate accounts for revenue, for your operating expenses, for your taxes, and ideally your profit as well. These key pieces are really important. So if you're a business owner that right now is sending all of your money to one single account, and it's just essentially a big piggy bank where everything is pulling out and being distributed from, it's not going to be a great setup for you. And even worse, if it's an account for your business, but is titled in your name, it's not setting you up for success. So when it comes to setting up these accounts, you can obviously go to the bank. You can set up everything, fill out all the paperwork. But if you're anything like me and you don't want to waste a few hours at the bank, you can actually do all of this with just a few clicks using Sequence. And I'll show you exactly how I do that right now. So my first step is getting the money inside of the system. And to do that, we open up a checking account with just a few clicks. We call it an income source. This is going to be the destination for all of the money that your business is making. So I'm going to click create income source. We'll call this business revenue. Create the income source. And just like that, we have a new bank account instantly created in the name of the business, a routing number, an account number through Thread Bank, FDIC insured. So everything's good to go. So in order to create the accounts, you can go to the bank, but I can show you how quickly you can do that here inside of Sequence. What we can do is we can actually create a pod, just another account that we're able to instantly create. In this case, I could say tax account. And just like that, another account is created. The bank, routing number, account number, it even comes with a debit card if I want to pay out of it. But for right now, it's as simple as that. So literally in just a few seconds, we can create these accounts. Again, you can go to the bank to do this, but earlier this week, I just wasted 45 minutes sitting in the bank to deposit a single check into our escrow account. It was wild. But again, to each their own. I'd prefer to do it in just a few clicks, but everybody can make their own decision. And here's the final thing to remember. You want to label them clearly and stop putting everything into one big bucket. Every dollar needs a home, and we've clearly labeled these accounts with their purpose. Now, step 2. You need to build your revenue routing system. And here's a crazy stat that I heard. 82% of businesses fail due to a cash flow issue, not a lack of profits. Now you might wonder, well, in reality, of course, a business that goes out of business has a cash flow problem. So it could be debated, but it's an important piece. Cash flow is king when it comes to running your business. And like we said before, every dollar needs a home. When it's coming in, it needs to have a destination. And since we've set up our accounts, now what we need to do is actually get the money into the right spot. And while most banks can send specific dollar amounts to different accounts, unless you have an identical monthly cash flow every month, so the same people are paying you the same amount on the same day every single month, just sending specific dollar amounts to accounts is not often going to do everything you need it to do. In my case, I like to use percentages because I know exactly how much money every single time I get paid, whether a client pays on the 1st of the month or the 15th or the 30th or ad hoc throughout the month. I know that those accounts are getting funded with the appropriate amount of money each time, because otherwise I would have to go in and manually calculate what is 15% of the amount of money that's currently in there and manually send it. Again, you can do it. I just don't like to waste time on things that can be automated. And let me show you how we can set up these rules based on what we had beforehand. If you're like most business owners I know, you're probably dreading the financial mess waiting for you after the holidays. Credit card bills, tax prep, quarterly projections. But what if you could start 2025 with your entire financial system running on autopilot? That's exactly what Sequence does. It's like having a 24/7 financial manager who automatically pays your bills on time, every time, sets aside money for taxes, tracks and manages your expenses with spending limits and real-time insights, and even build your emergency fund. While other business owners are spending January building spreadsheets, you could have your entire financial system automated in under 30 minutes. From December 26th to January 15th, you can get 25% off your entire year of Sequence. Click the link below and use the code 25GOALS, and let's make 2025 the year that your finances run themselves. Now, back to the video. So when we have the business revenue right here, all we need to do is click and drag the rule. So let's actually start with taxes. And now I can trigger this every single time money comes into my business account, or I can do it by a specific date. Maybe it's the first of the month, maybe it's bi-weekly or the end of the month. Let's just trigger this every single time we get paid. So right here, I'm gonna set 15% to taxes. I'm gonna add another account. I wanna send 10% to profit. Scroll down and find it. And then I'm gonna put the remaining 75% into our operating expenses. And just like that, every single time any dollar goes into the business revenue account that we get paid, that money's getting split up just how we said it would. Now, you might say, well, 75% for operating expenses is absurd. Well, here's the thing. I typically do my payroll out of those operating expenses, but if you don't want to, what you can also do is, again, just simply create a pod. We'll click payroll. It's been created. And now I just simply click on my rule. Let's do 50% to operating expenses, and the remaining 25% is going towards our payroll account. And just like that, we have it set up. So now the nice thing about setting up these rules inside of Sequence is that not only is it automated, but there's no more guessing where your money should go. Again, it's not just one big pot of money. Every single dollar has a specific destination that we're trying to send it to. Now let's move on to step 3. This is where you need to automate your bills and expenses. Another crazy stat, the average business owner spends 5 hours a week paying bills. That is 260 hours per year. What a waste of time. Plus, we all know the issues. If there's late payments, it hits your credit score, you have to deal with late fees. It's just an annoying thing to deal with. So if you haven't already done so, you need to list all of your recurring expenses and ideally set them on auto pay. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can set up that payment, whether it's the full balance or the minimum payment due. It's important to remember that if you decide for the minimum payment due on your credit cards, it's only a small fraction of the balance. You'll need to pay much more than that to start reducing the debt instead of increasing it. So don't let that catch you by surprise. But let me also show you how one business owner that we work with started saving an extra $6,000 per month to put towards their debt using a couple of the different smart rules that we've got built in. So here we are back to our map. And as you can see, I've added a few, or I've synced a few of the debts that we have. We got a business credit card, a monthly utility bill, monthly rent, and a line of credit. Now, the crazy thing is that we can actually start to automate significantly more of this payment process than you typically can. Typically, if you're talking to your credit card provider or any liability provider, you're going to be able to pay either the minimum amount due or the statement balance. So now that we have our operating expenses bucket and getting money every single month into it, what I can do is I can actually sync this to any and all of my expenses. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag a rule. And I don't know if you've heard of Debt Snowball or Debt Avalanche. There's some great tools when it comes to paying off debt earlier. We've actually built some of those things in, and that's what the business owner who started saving $6,000 a month towards their debt payoff, that's what they utilized. So in this situation, most debts are paid on a monthly basis, whether it's rent, car payment, credit card, etc. So we're going to trigger this by date, and we're going to do this monthly. In this case, we'll say it's on the first of the month. And when I click on the actions, I've got a lot of different options here. I can transfer a fixed amount. I can do a percentage of the balance. I can round down. I can do all of these different pieces. You can even transfer the current balance. And what I want to do in this case is use my Avalanche and Snowball. But just to show you some of the other options, you can automate the process of paying the minimum amount due, paying the current balance, paying a percent of it, or the last statement balance. So again, all of the stuff is pre-programmed in here. So however you want to run it, you can do it yourself. But in this case, I'm a big fan of the Debt Snowball process because they don't have enough to pay off all of these debts at once. If you're not familiar with Debt Snowball, it's a great tool that was popularized by Dave Ramsey that talks about setting aside a certain amount of money towards your debts. We're not counting mortgage, but all your other debts. You rank those debts in reverse order from lowest balance to highest balance. And then using the amount of money that you can set aside each month to pay towards your debts. You pay the minimum amount due on every single account, and then all of the remaining money goes towards the lowest balance card or debt. And then as you pay that off, that money continues to snowball into the other cards. It helps you pay off your debt significantly faster than the typical process that most people do. Plus, there's a big psychological win in getting that win of paying off the first card, and then paying off the second card, and then paying off the third debt. So in this case, we've already built it in here. And let's just say we've allocated $10,000 a month towards this goal of paying off our debt. And so here I can add in a fixed amount of $10,000. It's going to the business credit card, but all I need to do now is just click add account, and I will add the rest of our debts that we want to pay off. In this case, it's just the line of credit because I don't need to worry about the utilities and the monthly rent. So I'll click save. And just like that, we have a debt snowball process set up on the first of the month. And you can see it right here. This action will use $10,000 to pay the minimum amount due of the business credit card, the line of credit. All remaining funds will be transferred to the liability with the lowest balance. In this case, it's the business credit card. So you might say $10,000 is too much for you. No problem. $1,000, whatever it is, easy to adjust. Click save, and we're good to go. Now, again, when it comes to the rest of the expenses, the same principle holds true. We trigger by date. Let's say our utilities are due monthly on the 18th. And all we need to do is transfer the last statement balance. Save and done. Same thing for rent. Trigger by date, monthly. Let's say our rent is due on the last day of the month. And in this case, we know the fixed amount. So we're going to do a fixed amount of $2139.03. Save. Done. Just like that, we've automated our bill payment, our expenses, everything like that. Don't need to worry about it again. Now, don't set it and forget it forever. You want to come back and make sure that everything is in line with your goals. But at the same point, we don't need to worry about this every single month. Now, let's move into step 4, and that's about building your profit system. And here's the key thing that most business owners forget. Profit can't be an afterthought for you. It needs to be intentional. You really should be allocating a percentage upfront from your revenue as profit. Now, you might be saying, Nick, I can't afford to do that. But here's the thing. Treat it like it's a non-negotiable expense. Even if you start with just 1% of revenue because you're tight on cash flow, that's fine. Just make sure you start. And you can increase it over time. There's actually a ton of research showing the impact of starting with a small amount when it comes to starting savings for retirement and growing your wealth, because it's especially helpful when people are getting started to have a small, comfortable amount to get used to less money being in your account each month. But you need to start somewhere and then just incrementally increase it as you get more and more comfortable with it. That same principle holds true with profit. It's your money, so let's take it and use it. And remember, automate these transfers into your profit account, because from there we can either use it to reinvest in the business, we can continue building our own wealth, or we can look for new opportunities. Whatever you want, it's your money, you earned it. So we've got the money here, we've already set up the rule. Again, in this case, we started with 10%. You might only be able to do 1%. It doesn't matter. Start somewhere. I'd encourage you to go higher, but we've started somewhere. And again, we can always adjust this. Let's say everything goes great and we can actually increase to 15%. We can see the alerts. Okay, great. We're over 100%. No problem. We can take that out of the operating expenses. Save, and just like that, we are good to go. Now, step 5. That's setting up an emergency fund. I know everybody's heard of an emergency fund, but the tough thing is that most people aren't great about thinking long-term. Don't realize the importance of having an emergency fund, especially for their business. But in reality, an unexpected expense can derail everything that you've built. You really want to have a few months of operating expenses and costs saved up, ideally 3 to 6, but I get it. You probably don't have that kind of money sitting around right now, and that's okay. But again, just like the profit piece, we need to get started somewhere. So let me show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to creating a pod. Again, that's just creating another account, and we're going to call this our business emergency fund. And just like that, we've created the account. So now what I need to do is get some money into it. And I can go back and click to my rules. And we've already allocated 100% of all of the money in this account. But what I can do is I can create a new rule. And what I'm going to do here is I actually, for emergency funds, whether it's business or personal, I love to use something called top up. What that means is you can set the amount of money that you want to eventually get into that account and sequence will continue routing an appropriate amount of money into that account until it reaches that level. Once it reaches that level, all of a sudden it will skip that rule and send the money down the system. So in this case, I'm going to drag this up top and I'm going to select our business emergency fund. And then what do we want our balance? In this case, let's say we want our balance to $30,000. And you might say, well, I don't have $30,000 right now, so none of my other rules are going to run if we sent a $30,000 lump sum to our business emergency fund. What I can do is I can add a limit, and I can say I want to limit this at, let's say, $1,000 per month. And just like that, by clicking save, I've set up the system so that the first $1,000 each month goes to the business emergency fund, and then all of the rest of the money gets distributed appropriately to payroll, to operating expenses, to profit, and to taxes. Now, the last step, step 6, that's about talking to a CPA or accountant. I'm not an accountant, this is not tax advice, but you need to optimize for your taxes. Taxes are one of the biggest expenses for business owner, if not the biggest. But the thing is, they're most often overlooked until it's too late. A good CPA or accountant is not just about filing your taxes. It's not going into TurboTax and getting it done. A good accountant or a good CPA are key in reducing what you owe and keeping your finances in compliance. When you can plan ahead when it comes to taxes, you can save significant money. You can come up with tax strategies like depreciation, deductions, retirement contributions. All of these pieces can make a serious impact on your tax bill. Because if you can understand your tax obligation and make sure you always have enough set aside, hence the reason that we have our own account set aside for taxes, making sure that money every single month is going into it, you're not going to get blindsided with a tax bill that you didn't plan for. And here's the other thing. When you're looking for a CPA, make sure they work with business owners. And ideally try asking for a few referrals because you want to talk to those people. Don't just get the referrals and assume it's all set. You want to talk to those people to understand if they're in a similar situation to you, the types of success that they've had, because finding the right person could end up saving you $5,000, $10,000, or even more when it comes to your tax bill. And when you're saving on taxes, that's straight to your bottom line. So that is a huge advantage if you can do it right. Now you know how to automate your business finances. But what if you could also grow your wealth faster while working less? Well, if you click here, you can watch my video on advanced financial automations that'll take your personal finances to the next level.